in the professional context, heard the term agentic AI for the first time recently. And I was like, I don't know if we're there yet. I'm going to start thinking about that differently very quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's my idea. I don't know what the idea is yet.
Yeah.
But
it's a mindset shift, or the future is going to be here faster than I thought, or
there's more here than I realize right now.
Work might change more radically than I expected, or absolutely.
Yeah, I'm piqued by this one. And I grant it's easy to say that. It's probably something small I'm going to be interested in too, but this is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll have you back on in a couple of years to talk about it.
Now it's apparently every 6 months.
6 months?
Yeah.
Some careers evolve step by step. Others evolve by seeing what's needed next and building it from scratch. Today on The Abstract here in Las Vegas at CLOC, I am joined by Adam Becker, Director of Legal Operations at Cockroach Labs, and one of CLOC's board members as well. So thank you for having us.
Thank you for inviting me to your lovely studio here in Las Vegas.
Adam has one of the most interesting career arcs in legal, starting as an IP associate at Skadden, then shifting into talent and attorney development, growing into legal ops leadership roles at big companies like MetLife and Endeavor, and now, as we're going to talk about, building legal ops from the ground up at an exciting company in database technology. We're going to talk today about your journey through law, operations, leadership, and how legal ops professionals are really redefining modern legal departments and how they scale and thrive. Sound like too high of billing or just the right billing for our conversation?
Probably too high. Let's see how far we get. But probably, let's see if I can meet this very high expectation that you have set.
Excellent. Yes. Okay. I do want to ask you a few questions about your career before we get to Cockroach, because it's an interesting arc. Were there early experiences working as an attorney that maybe planted the seeds for this move into more formal ops leadership roles? Like, how did this kind of come about?
That's an interesting question. Probably not, obviously. I never intended to kind of... I would never have envisioned this being the direction I took. Now, when you look back at things, and this will actually maybe something will come up later when I talk about, when I talk to lawyers now who want to get into kind of this area.
Yes.
When you look back at things, I used to joke I wasn't a very good litigator because I would I'd get the situation. I'm like, oh, we can resolve this. There's a way to fix this and we can streamline this whole thing, right? So maybe there was something in there inherently, but it probably maybe not the best litigator.
Yeah.
Because I was always looking for like the way to make this better.
Yeah.
And then that included both the situation, but also how we handle it. And at the time it was, obviously not as advanced as it is now. So you look back, there were like clues, but they weren't clues that would ever lead somebody to think, oh, well, I'm really into the process side of this, so I'm going to go do X, Y, and Z. It just wasn't really on the radar screen, and it took a while to kind of have that come out over time. Yeah.
I want to talk about that, right? Like making these leaps, attorney, talent, ops. I think you've alluded to the fact that maybe like some attorneys aren't totally comfortable pitching themselves for a role that isn't in their clear swim lane. Right? Yep. Even though skills are very transferable. How have you thought about that in your own career?
I've never thought about that in my own career. Once I broke the lawyer mold.
Yeah.
And it's a really hard mold to break. There is kind of, I don't know why this is. I mean, lawyers are so educated and, the intelligence level across the board is just so high. And especially litigators, right? They come out, they're so sure of themselves and they can really sell their stories. And when it comes to themselves, a lot of lawyers, and I don't want to stereotype the whole crew, feel like they do what they do and they don't know how to do anything else. So, I'm an employment litigator, and so my next job will be in employment. And it doesn't have to be that way.
Right.
People are either comfortable with it, or it's something in the training and how they're conditioned, or it's just this very practical consideration of, well, I've come this far with this expertise, so I will continue to grow and capitalize on it, which also makes perfect sense. But a lot of lawyers over that I've spoken to over time feel kind of stuck with where they are, and they don't know that they can do anything else. Now, I think a lot's changed in the past few years, and people are a little bit more open to it. But the transferable skill set, which people in most of the world say, this is directly relatable to what we do here in this way. Lawyers sometimes have a hard time with that.
Yeah.
And I probably did back then too. I probably viewed the transition as a related but totally new job, which it is. But there were transferable skills. With that said, there were a lot of skills I simply didn't have yet.
Sure.
How to develop. But I think in general, a lot of people have more value and skills than they immediately realize when they are looking to pivot in their careers.
Do you think that successful, I mean, we don't have to talk like deeply about navigating
We're going
an
to
interview
get so deep
into the interview process. But when you're approaching a new job, maybe like when you were thinking about, okay, I'm going to move into my first legal ops job and out of a firm and go in house, and I don't know, is it confidence? Like, how did you prepare yourself for these sort of moments of transition or inflection in your career?
I think there was a degree of confidence, but I think I've also always been confidently curious about things. And I've talked about curiosity with other folks before. Curiosity, I think, is one of the most important traits in legal ops.
Yes.
And probably in all careers when you get down to it. So there have been times in my professional career where something has come to me and I had to decide to take it or not. And then there have been times when I've gone for something, and I do think it's beneficial to be a little bit more confident when you're going after something new because you're really trying to, not sell yourself, but show that you can do what the challenges are and different from what you've done before. Legal ops was a little bit different because the first time it came to me as really something to explore was a job I did not get.
Oh, interesting.
It was a friend saying, please apply for this job at my company. And I said, I don't know what this is. I've never heard of this. And he said, look at the job description. And there were 10 or 12 things on there, 8 of which I had done.
Okay.
And I said, I've done 8 out of 12. I'm confident enough to have this conversation. I didn't even know what this was. I'm like, this is pretty cool. And I learned a lot through that process. Yeah. Unfortunately, the 4 that I didn't have were the 4 priorities of this general counsel. So I did not get that job. And that GC was very nice about it and said, I think you can do this, but I really need X, Y, and Z right now. It makes perfect sense. I've never done that. I work at a law firm. That's done for me. And then I spent the next year learning how to at least start doing that. I knew I'd never be able to do what it was, but learning more about legal ops. And then I went into that stage of my purposeful career transition a little bit more confidently, knowing that I had to say, there are certain things I haven't done. I would never be untruthful about that, but here's what I've done to learn about them now or prepare, or how I've done similar, whatever it may be in the past.
I want to talk about Cockroach in a second, but I don't want to totally pass over like working in large organizations as well. MetLife, Endeavor. How did you think about sort of the scope of legal ops and the impact that legal ops could have in a really quite large sort of legal department and in a very large sort of matrixed organization?
It's interesting. I think that's a good question. And I don't think I went into MetLife thinking about the impact I could have on the legal organization. I think I went in there going, this is a job that I'm right for, and I get to go in-house and learn a lot of stuff. And I think that's what I did. And then I think the impact happened kind of immediately and over time. And I probably, I've had to learn kind of the corporate way of thinking coming out of a law firm. So something like thinking about impact and even ROI and that sort of, and these sorts of terms that we use, I started to see it pretty quickly. And I said, I didn't view it as impact. I viewed it more as like improvement, and also it was a trigger to be careful about certain things. If you play with that loose bolt just a little bit too much, the whole thing falls apart, right? So like you start to learn things like that, but you see it pretty quickly, and sometimes you actually see it in the way you wouldn't expect. So we all think impact is going to be praise or people loving what you did and your boss being great. And sometimes your impact is because a group of people in the department are really unhappy about a change you've helped effectuate, which means you did a really good job. Or not. But I started to see the impact pretty quickly when those things started to happen.
Yeah.
And then I had which is ironically, but probably at the same time I started coming to stuff like this and really learning how people are thinking and approaching this so I could get better at it. And that's when I started thinking about impact in a more meaningful and different way. And it took a little time to kind of understand that, but there is a lot of impact you can make. And some of the smallest things, as we're joking about before the start, the MVPs, the minimal viable products can really significantly change large scale things. And I never underestimate the impact of small changes and improvements having large impacts.
Yeah. This is a question that is not in the script, but I'm really curious about. I mean, do you think that people who are leading legal ops or doing legal ops often kind of need to have thick skin? Right? I mean, in some ways, sometimes, maybe you have the backing of the GC to go and run at something, but as you're saying, the process change might not be totally popular with the 17 attorneys who have been there, who have had freedom to do things whatever way they want for the past 6 or 7 years. Or I don't know. I'm curious about that. Maybe thick skin's not the right term, but you know what I'm getting at?
You have to, not thick skin as much as you have to have a degree of solid confidence in the things you proposed and are moving forward, because they will be chipped away at. Thick skin is probably more for the harsher environment,
right?
Or the less congenial environment, right? Where people will say sometimes just mean things and it's considered acceptable. In-house, one of the nice things about going in-house is that's typically just not the way it is.
Yes.
There are behaviors that happen in other parts of the legal ecosystem that do not happen in-house and should not. But I think there's a confidence thick skin in a way. And you can doubt yourself because you might have a lot of people telling you why this is so bad and so wrong. And they're actually not even doing it to be mean. It might not be self-preservation. Sometimes it's simply, I don't want to deal with this change.
Right.
It's a lot easier for me not to have this happen.
Yeah.
So I'm going to tell you why it's wrong. And I think that kind of wall of confidence that you build up in your mind, it can take some hits and maybe be torn down if you're not careful with it. But it's funny, we led a session this morning with my friend Tommy, who I know has done this as well. And, one of the things she said is really, I know I'm right on this one, and I have to hold steady, and I have to convince others that I'm right on this one, and I'm going to hold it till I'm proven wrong, or something along those lines. And it, it's a fine balance of, you don't want to be stubborn, but you don't want to back off at the first sign of criticism. And so one of the best ways to do that, as far as thick skin goes, is like, oh, you have a criticism. Let's dissect it. Tell me more about it. And then that actually leads to kind of the legal ops art of like, oh, we are now, are we in practical or are we in something else?
Yeah.
And there are different ways to deal with that. But it's not skin. That's almost like, they're coming at you as a person.
Yeah.
But coming at you with improvements is definitely, you need a sturdy wall that, you will take down if you need to, right? If you're, we've all been wrong.
Totally.
But you can certainly make people uneasy sometimes. And not because they're bad or good, just it's different. Everything else will change. Can we keep one thing the same? But you kind of get that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, along those lines, I think a lot of people are sort of schooled in the idea that legal ops is people, it's process, it's technology. And I'm sure different people have different opinions about, are we over or under indexing on any one of those three? I am curious. I am curious what you think about that. But I also think about the people aspect of that too. It's not just having the right people to do the right things. It's also like bringing people along with you, even when you're doing things that are slightly unpopular.
It's an interesting question. I'm pretty honest about, I'm very transparent about me, probably too much so. I should not be on a podcast with the SpotDraft people. I go through kind of what I call, like, I'm just calling them seasons lately. Like, I'm in this season. Season could be a day or a year. You have no idea. But I've been in this people season lately.
Okay.
And I'm really focusing on the importance of the people around you that you have to work with, that you have to build with, that you have to convince of, and all that, and how to handle those different personalities and kind of get to a place where we're doing something that's great or amazing or better, taking all of those concerns into account. So I'm definitely, if the triangle is a triangle, I'm definitely making the people side more of a isosceles situation right now. With that said, the tech part is really interesting. And I'm very keen to see where that takes us. Thinking about today's keynote speaker, Nancy Rademacher. I was fortunate enough to see a preview of what she was going to say. And it left me thinking a lot about how I approach things and how companies approach things. And her take on technology first is kind of the inverse of what we've always said in the legal ops world. We always say you put tech on top of everything else. You have the process, you have the people, you put tech on top of it. And here's the other way of looking at it. And I don't know what it's going to be as we go down this road of, what we're talking about, Gen AI to agentic to AI to whatever's next. It's a really interesting time to keep an open mind on it.
Do you feel like you're in a people season also because of maybe where you are or where Cockroach is in the journey with Cockroach, like the maturity of the business? I mean, because when you started, you were the first legal ops hire, right? And you've really built the function from the ground up. And I'm curious if you feel like, what you've been able to build allows you to be in the people season, or where Cockroach is in its journey as a company also contributes to that.
Maybe I have not thought about this before because I did not do my homework, but it's an interesting question. And
wasn't in the script either.
I know. Good. We can throw out the script. I didn't even know there was a script. There is something you lose with size.
Yeah.
So if I'm working at a 300 lawyer department, understanding the real underneath, personality and drives of each person you're working with can be challenging and time consuming and maybe impossible. I don't know. When you're working, we're a 500 person company right now, which is not a startup anymore. It's not, 5,000.
It's a good size.
It's a good size. It's a real size. And I work with people repeatedly enough, of course on the legal team, but outside of the team as well, to kind of have relationships where I understand what their concerns are, both in terms of how they operate and what's going on at work. And so, it is one because you want to make people happy. You don't want to make them do something they don't want to do. But from the legal ops perspective, it's a lot easier to get things done when they buy into it and they want you to do it with them.
Yeah.
So I think maybe there's something to that. I have a very different relationship with all the people on my legal team than I've had with others. I've always been close to my bosses. But I know this group of people and they know us pretty well. This is I actually have had this team over to my house.
That's great. Yeah.
Like I don't usually do that.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a different level of personal interaction. So maybe there could be something there.
How big was Cockroach when you joined?
I was I was employee like 350 or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do you think about I don't know if these two things are at odds with each other either, but sort of building process that scales and can scale quickly, but also being able, 500 people, but Cockroach is a very innovative company. So I'd imagine things have to remain very flexible.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
How do you think about balancing those two things?
I think it's the same problem with technology now. It's a question I don't have an answer to.
Yeah.
I went in there building to scale. Right, because the legal team is now more than doubled in size since I've been there. So that's a scalable thing. Everything the company does is, scaling. How do we make it happen? But again, now we've hit this technological innovation where maybe there's better ways than there were a year ago, or in my case, a season ago.
Right.
and I think it's a balance between the two. And quite frankly, it's the same thing I see as something like this. the technology providers in our world are also having this conversation,
Yes.
right? Are we native AI? Are we putting it in? Are we integrated? Are we buying something? Like, it's the same thing. We have this amazing product that we built, and now we have this new technology which we have to build into it. So we're all balancing it in a way. And I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer, but we're embracing both. I mean, I'm pretty sure I'm allowed to say this. Cockroach Labs has become very AI focused, and we made it a corporate goal to be an AI native company.
Yeah.
So we play with AI a lot. We have an exploratory program in legal we are using more than I ever thought. I'm very excited here to learn actually how to perfect my GPTs, because right now my GPT is overly helpful. Too much person in there. But we're building it. We're doing it. And it's cool. And I don't know where everything's going to go, but it's a balance. We still need stuff to work, but we are very open to what's next.
You can be a little mean to the GPTs. You actually get good results sometimes. Yeah. And that's what the research shows as well. Yeah.
I'm always nice to it. I know that they've said don't say please and thank you, but I always do. But my GPT wants to be overly helpful to people, where I've actually say only answer the question asked.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Don't provide more information. And it's like, but I have this information I'm going to give these people. I'm like, no, don't do that.
I want to ask you a little bit about your work with CLOC. I mean, I guess the first question would be sort of, how have you seen the field of legal ops evolve since, I don't know if you want to say the past decade, or since you joined the CLOC board, or,
Well, I think the biggest change, it's like looking back 10 years, I see where there was big jumps. So I think it was the first time it was here in Las Vegas. I don't remember what year anymore. It was 16, 17. I don't remember what it was. I haven't been coming for 10 years. I'm at 9.
Okay.
8. I'm not sure.
Close enough.
First year I came here, there were maybe 700 or 800 people. It was a very different setup in a different hotel. Came the year after that, it was like 1,200 people. The third year was 2,000. So that exponential jump happened around that time. And it was also when you started to see, weirdly enough, titles and jobs kind of coalesce around like legal ops as a title, and with the responsibilities that were kind of mostly similar. And that was kind of the growth of it all. And then it became like a really hot thing.
Yeah.
Like everybody was talking about it all of a sudden. And I'm like, well, look at me in the middle of this hot topic. But it was an interesting period, because I think somehow the community penetrated the GC community, and a lot of GC would say, I know I need to have this. I'm not sure why yet, but I know I need to have this. I know this is a thing. So a lot of jobs got created that way, and that's how the industry kind of blew up. And then we were kind of forming what this was together. So right. to the credit of the founders of the organization, coming up with the Core 12, which still really holds today. Yeah, there's more. There might be sub things under each one now.
Sure.
But those competencies hold today for the most part. And that really helped drive and create the actual role and profession. And I think that's important. What I find interesting now of late, just paying attention, is that there are so many different titles now. Yeah. And there are so many different areas and specialties and mandates that people have, that the consistency is really hard to gauge. And that might be harder for you all when you're like finding people to talk to, and their title is like Director of Transformational Services, legal. You're like, okay, are they in legal ops? Yeah, they probably are. We're not sure. It's a field that keeps growing. When we look here, there's new people every year. They're still offering the 101 sessions, and there's over 100 people. Yeah. Every time they do it, 200 or 300 sometimes. It's a lot of people coming in. So it's kind of fascinating. And then you have people who are starting to retire. Right. And you have people who are leaving legal ops to go do COO level things. So it's a really interesting change, but the change is certainly the growth. I think what we're all seeing now is responsibilities are growing as well.
Mm-hmm.
And there could be a lot of reasons for that. The one that I do like to point out is that GC roles are changing
Yes.
and expanding, and they're taking on more. And one of my jobs, I never talk about which one, the GC was also in charge of physical company security.
Sure. Uh-huh.
Sure, why not, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, they probably just threw that on. I have friends who were GCs and all of a sudden the head of HR.
Yep.
And
I see that all the time.
yeah, it's not uncommon.
Yeah.
So if I'm going to support that person, there's a lot I have to learn about things.
Yes.
I can't assume that that's the same thing as what I already know how to do when it comes to litigation management.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot is changing. And then you become, I think there are a lot of people doing legal ops now who are the de facto chief of staff / chief operating officer of legal, whatever you want to call it,
Sure.
without the title, without even realizing it.
Mm-hmm. Because they're the partner to the GC, really, ultimately. Like
Yeah.
the thought partner and the one who's driving the strategy for the department, I guess.
Yes.
Right?
And getting all the different areas of focus aligned under that GC. If GC has 3 departments under them, you've got 3 heads of departments who do things in a different way and present in a different way, and that just probably isn't great for anybody.
Yeah.
And it is so interesting how this stuff is developing now.
I mean, that gets a little bit to a question I have, which is about where legal ops is headed. I think another flavor of that is there's a sense, some people would say like legal ops is at a crossroads, or legal ops is at a sort of transitional moment, or, I mean, what does that mean to you? And then I guess a subset there is also, in what role does CLOC need to play, have to play, want to play in helping get legal ops to the next stage?
So
next season, maybe.
Yeah, the next season. The legal ops at the crossroad, I think that was the title of a session yesterday. So that makes sense. I welcome the conversation. I think it's we're in a very beneficial position to be able to have this analysis of ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Self-reflection is always a good thing. Know yourself. Why not? Yes and no. And I don't know I always feel like when people say we're at a crossroads or an inflection point, there's a negative connotation to that. I don't think there is in this case. I think there are several conversations happening within the ecosphere, strategic, tactical, whatever it may be. And I think, again, titles are all over the map, and I think responsibilities are all over the map, but I think legal ops people are taking on more and more. And some of that will be strategic, dare I say administrative. Some of it will be very high level that nobody else knows what they're actually talking about.
Yep.
And I think that's okay. Why can't it be both at the same time? And I don't know if those roads can cross and you can then kind of combine them all, but I don't think it's one way or another. I don't think it's negative. I actually think it's positive. Again, GC roles are changing. Our roles are changing. This is an opportunity to learn new things.
Yeah.
Take on more, be helpful, and show what we really can do. I think any organization's responsibility is to its members.
Yep.
And what they need. And, yes, I'm on the CLOC board. Thank you for pointing that out. My title is I am a current member of the CLOC board here to serve the people who are members of this association.
Yeah.
The best that I can. And, I really, that's why I really welcome all the feedback people provide. Like, what do you want to learn about? What should we present? What do you like? What do you don't like? And I think that is initiating those larger level conversations, talking about what's next, really futurism like we saw today, I think is super important to prepare us. Some people will run with it and embrace it and, be ahead of the curve, and some won't. And that's okay. But I think our job is to listen, create, invite, and then present. One of the things that I'm really focused about is giving our members who want it more visibility and leadership opportunities, whatever it may be. We've created more councils. We have
brand and voice is like
voice
a new
and
one.
brand.
Right?
I'm the liaison to the Education Advisory Council, which is I think we're back down to like 12 or 15. We were at 20 at one point. We rotate every 2 years. We have subcommittees. We have people working only on certain things now, like in the CLOC Academy, which is great because people get involved and get their voice heard and sit and put in suggestions. And the number of things that are happening because some somebody randomly said something or threw in an idea
Right.
is staggering. I don't think people actually realize that. Like,
Yeah.
you can make a suggestion, it actually may happen. I hear a lot of people say, well, I made a suggestion 3 years ago, nothing happened. I'm like, well, other things have. Not everything can happen. And I think that's super important. The other thing, I will say out loud the thing that my friends know. This is such an amazing opportunity to get better at what you do. I did a presentation this morning on stage, and there were probably about 100 people in the room, right? I would have been terrified of that 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And here I am with the friendliest audience in the world who want their friends and peers and other people, companies to do well. So I get this wonderful thing that if my idea is selected, I get to present in front of all these people and get better at it. And the funny thing is, in my real job, I often have to present in front of 100 or 200 people.
Yeah.
And if I am bad at that, I'm going to have some problems after getting the buy-in. And that's happened. I used to be terrible at this. So, I mean, there's so many hidden benefits to doing this that I just love. I mean, the people who take the time and put their ideas out there to even submit a proposal, good for them. Like, great. Like, yeah, maybe you didn't get it this year, maybe you did, but like, it got your thought process going. You put something together. You learned how to think about something differently. Maybe you explored it afterwards, and maybe it helped with your real job too.
Yeah.
Ultimately, this is all about helping with your real job. We're never going to teach people how to do their job. It's always going to be, hey, I got one idea out of a 4-day conference that I can start using tomorrow, and it'll be pretty cool. Yeah, run with that. That's pretty great.
Absolutely.
Yeah. If it's more than one idea, even better. I always get more than one, but
what's your idea so far? Putting you on the spot.
I in the professional context heard the term agentic AI for the first time recently, and I was like, I don't know if we're there yet. I'm going to start thinking about that differently very quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's my idea. I don't know what the idea is yet.
Yeah.
But
it's a mindset shift, or the future is going to be here faster than I thought, or
there's more here than I realize right now.
Work might change more radically than I expected, or absolutely.
Yeah, I'm piqued by this one. And I grant it's easy to say that. It's probably something small I'm going to be interested in too, but this is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll have you back on in a couple of years to talk about
now it's apparently every 6 months.
6 months.
Yeah.
As we start to close out, I want to ask you some closing questions that I like to ask all my guests.
Oh, this is where it gets.
These are the fun ones.
This is the fun one. Now we are doing the Between Two Ferns.
Exactly.
Okay. If everybody knows what that is.
Next year, I'm going to get some. Although we won't be. Well,
you don't have to go that far.
Yeah, we won't be in Vegas. We'll be in Chicago.
Next year's in Chicago, but they also have plans in Chicago. More than they have here, actually.
What's your favorite part of your day-to-day at Cockroach?
Not going to answer your question the way you want me to.
Great.
The favorite part of my day today at Cockroach and all my legal ops jobs is doing so many different things in the course of a day that seem unrelated to each other, that are just, it's just totally random sometimes. And I love the fact that I'm jumping, I'll have a call with a law firm in the morning and spend the afternoon looking at like an intern job description. Like, who knows what it's going to be? I love how varied and diverse things are in the course of a day.
That's a great answer.
It keeps me happy. If it was
it's
the
something
same
I
thing,
love about my job too.
Like, when you have like I need 3 hours to do this, and at the end of 3 hours, you're like, I feel like I've been through something.
Yeah.
When I'm jumping around between different things, like half an hour on this, an hour on this, and I feel much more invigorated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think this is a fun one. Do you have a professional pet peeve?
I have many professional pet peeves.
Honed at the law firm over.
There are certain corporate jargons that I don't react well to.
All right.
Is it a pet peeve? There's only one that really sets me off, which I'm happy to do. But when I do it and people listen to this, they're going to email it to me just to piss me off. When people say, let's get our ducks in a row, it drives me nuts. My least favorite legal operations term is do more with less.
Uh,
However, I'm trying to turn that phrase into a benefit for our folks,
sure.
which I will come back to on the next season. So that's my only
Yeah.
pet peeve is that one phrase.
Did you have a traumatic incident with
Probably
Doc
did.
at some point?
Probably did.
at a
There's
park?
probably something that we'll have to. That'll be the next one. We'll have to go into like the hypno thing on that. Yeah.
Is there a book that you would recommend for our audience? And this could be like a professional book, but it could also just be like, I read this book recently on an airplane and it was awesome.
So 2 answers to this.
Yeah.
I am still kind of. It's hard to say I'm reading. I am reading, but I'm also going through Maury's KPI book on legal operations. I've had that on my desk for a while, and it's a great reference guide that I like to have. This is going to be a weird thing when it comes to everything else. When it comes to management and leadership, I really appreciate the books about sports teams written by coaches. Because there is something really relevant to the sports coaching and corporate leadership connection. I don't watch any sports, even though my last job had a lot of sports in it. I think there's a lot of good ideas in them.
Yeah.
I'm finishing up one called Coaching from the Inside Out or Players from the Inside Out. I don't remember exactly.
We'll find it for the show notes. Yeah.
And it's just, it gives you interest for leadership and management. Yeah. And so they're 2 different things. So not everybody here is a manager. But yeah, I think they have some really neat ideas which are applicable.
I love that.
Yeah.
Last question for you, my traditional closing question for my guests.
Yes.
It's if you could look back on your days as a young lawyer at the firm, just getting started, something that you know now that you wish that you'd known back then.
Oof. Every experience you have will add to your arsenal of skills, as unrelated as it may seem at the time.
Absolutely.
And I said arsenal, not toolkit. Yeah.
I love that. What a great way to end this.
Thank you.
Adam, thank you so much for joining me here at CLOC.
Thanks for having me in this fantastic studio.
Yeah.
You travel with the studio.
Everywhere I go.
This is
Yeah.
amazing.
You know,
I travel with the studio. That's the camera. Travel with the studio. I travel with a backpack.
And to all of our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in, and we hope to see you next time.